I've been a challenger player since set 3, and in this video I'm going to go through 5 of the most common mistakes that low ELO players make that instantly throw their games. Let's jump right into it. The first mistake that I see a lot of lower ELO players make is not executing their roll downs optimally. So in poker, there is a concept called an out, and it basically refers to any unseen card that if drawn will make their hand a lot stronger. For example, the outs for this spot would be any 5, which would give you a straight, and any heart card, which would give you a flush. The same concept actually exists in TFT when you're executing your roll downs on stage 4-1. Many players that end up playing Ionia are way too focused on looking for that single copy of Keima, and they completely ignore all of the other potential units that they could hit. For example, Karma 2, Kalista 2, Gwen 2, and Azir 2. If you're only looking for a Keima during your 4-1 roll down, it's very similar to only looking for a 5 with this poker hand, when in reality, any heart card would probably give you a winning hand as well. Here is an example of a recent game I played. I definitely did not play this roll down perfectly, but I think this was a very good example demonstrating what I mean by rolling for more than just a single unit and playing towards your outs. So if you look at my items, I have a Gunblade and a Shiv. The best users for these items in the current meta are going to be Keima, Kalista, and Azir. If you look at my bench, I'm holding a bunch of Teemos and Talias just in case I want to play Azir. I'm also holding onto all of these random challenger units just in case I want to play towards the challenger board with Keima and Kalista. Here I find the Gwen pair is pretty valuable for the Keima comp. Warwick pair, here I buy the Talia 2 just in case I want to play towards Azir. Set pair, and here I hit the Warwick 2, I sell the Swain to get the Wormwogs off him. Irelia, Yasuo, and Karma. So at this current point, I'm slightly more committed towards the Ionia Challenger board just because I haven't found a single Lux, Azir, Jarvan, or Nasus. Set 2, Garen just in case I want to play Azir. Swain for the same reason. Shen, one of the premier tanks for Ionia Challengers. Karma, Kalista, Gwen 2. And I don't pick up the Lux because at this point, I'm pretty much committed to the Ionia Challenger board. And I find the Keima as well. So let's take a minute to look at our current board after our 4-1 roll down. We have 4 challengers, 3 Ionias, Gwen 2, Set 2, and Warwick 2. We actually have a pretty decent board. However, let's imagine a scenario where we did not find any Yasuos and any Kai'Sas at all. Notice that I held this Maokai 2 throughout the entire roll down, and also picked up all of the Karmas along the way. Even if we did not find this Karma and this Yasuo, I would have an arguably even stronger board to play because a Karma 2 is going to be stronger than a Keima 1. And a Maokai 2 is a very good tank because I have Shadow Alazin and I also have Shen for 2 Bastion. This is the main benefit of being flexible on your 4-1 roll down and playing to as many outs as possible. So the next huge mistake that I see a lot of players making in lower elos is greeding for best in slot. So if you look at Keima and you go to item trios and you sort by adjusted placement, this apparently is the best performing trio of items on Keima. It has the lowest adjusted placement, and the next best trio is going to be JG, Hodge, and Guardbreaker, which is also going to be a 4.15, and the third best is going to be Shojin, JG, and Hodge. If you look at these 3 item combinations, they're pretty different, but the difference between the best in slot and the second or third best in slot is basically the same thing. Having best in slot for a unit actually isn't going to be as impactful as compared to how early you actually make the item. The earlier you make the actual item, the more value you're going to be getting from your components, essentially saving you more HP. If you just wait all the way until stage 4 before making your items, yeah, you might be just a little bit stronger, 0.01 placement stronger to be exact, but is that more valuable than the 40 extra HP you're going to save by slamming something suboptimal at stage 2-1? So I'm not exactly saying that you should never play for best in slot. I do think that there are certain situations where it's appropriate to play for best in slot, and I think that this is one of them. I have so much HP to work around, and it's very highly likely that I'm going to be top 2 anyway. However, if you look at my items, I already have a Shiv on my Kalista, so I can't really make this Ionic Spark because it's kind of diminishing returns. I already have the MR Shred. It's most likely just going to be Gargoyles, JG on the Keima, and then a random Gwynsus. However, Gwynsus is not really good on Keima, especially since I already have 6 Challenger. The best user of Gwynsus on my board is my Kalista. However, she already has 3 items. So the ultra greedy play I decided to make is to wait until I find another Kalista, put the Gwynsus on the Kalista, and pop one of these 3 items off my Kalista 2 because the Gwynsus could only do well on the Kalista, but any of these 3 items on my Kalista could do well on my Keima. Later on, I eventually do end up hitting the Keima 2 and the last Kalista, and I eventually pop one of the items off Kalista and put the Gwynsus on the Kalista. Another very common mistake that I see a lot of players make is holding the wrong units on your bench. This might not sound like a big deal, but the units you decide to hold will single-handedly dictate how your mid and late game are going to play out. There are a few questions I really like to ask myself when deciding what units I want to hold. The first one is it a unit that's going to go into my board in the near future? In a normal situation, Callista is an extremely valuable unit that you want to hold. I have a 2-gunner backline with a Tristana upgraded, and my items are not suited to play around Callista at all. I can't just sit on my ass with 5 components on my bench. It's way better for me to just play around the 2-gunner backline that I have and just slam these items and play a strong board into stage 3. How much stronger is the unit going to make your board? It's not actually stronger than my 2-gunner backline, even though gunners are terrible in the current meta right now. Is this an awkward unit to play with your current items in comp? Callista is going to be a very awkward unit that I'm going to play with this current setup for items. And how well does the unit transition into the meta comps? Callista transitions very well into challengers and Azir. Despite the fact that Callista is an extremely valuable unit to play early game, it's way better for me to just try and make 10 gold here if I win. So here is a separate example where I actually think it's really important for you to hold on to certain pairs. So the problem I have right now is I only have 3 gold to hold units on my bench, and I really want to buy this Malzahar in my shop. So the only way for me to buy this Malzahar is if I win the next round. On the off chance that I don't win my next round, what should I keep on my bench? So I think that the Malzahar pair is extremely valuable because if I hit the Malzahar 2, I could replace the Samira 2, and I'm going to have a really strong 2 Bruiser 2 Sork board with the potential to play into 3 Void. Because the Malzahar is very valuable, so is the Cho'Gath because it is my main frontline right now, and it opens me up into the 3 Void opener. This is going to make Renekton the weakest link out of these 3 units. Even though Renekton pair is extremely valuable early game, I have to give up on something. So luckily, I end up winning this round just barely, and I'm able to hold on to this Malzahar. If you see here, I end up hitting the Cho'Gath 2, which makes my frontline way stronger, and I end up hitting this Rek'Sai, which gives me an insane early game opener. The next mistake that I see a lot of players make is that they're way too scared of losing HP. So one thing that you need to know is that in the early game, when you lose a fight, the player damage is actually going to be pretty low compared to late game. What this means is that if you have a shit board early game, it is actually the best possible time to trade your HP for gold. One very extreme example is that if you're on a 4 lose streak, it's super important for you to lose that 5th round. It's actually going to end up saving you more HP in the future because that extra gold you're going to get will guarantee that your next Rolldown will be able to stabilize you on 3-2 or 3-5. So here is an example of a game I played on one of the older patches where Ornn was still broken, and it's a pretty good example of what I mean by being not afraid to lose HP. The reason why is because I'm going to get 3 gold from the lose streak and an extra 3 gold from Krugs, giving me a lot more money to stabilize on my 3-2 or 3-5 Rolldown if I choose to. I briefly scout the lobby just to make sure that nobody has a weaker board than me, and because I think that everyone I fight is going to beat me, I decide that it's okay to upgrade this early in my shop and play it because it's probably going to mitigate some of the damage I'll take from losing this 5th round. And here I'm fighting a level 5 player, he's just slightly stronger than me, and I believe that I only lose by... I still lose by 4 units, so I still take 8 damage. But it's fine because here I'm trading 8 HP to guarantee that I get that 6 gold right now. And that 6 gold is going to scale really well into late game because it will guarantee that I stabilize later on. So the final mistake that I want to cover in this video is going to be leveling to 4 at stage 2-1 if your board is trash. So what I want you guys to understand in TFT is that in the early game, you're not actually looking to play the strongest board possible. What you're looking for is to play around a gold efficient board, and the key to a gold efficient board is playing around these 1-cost units. If you get something like a Vi, yes, the Vi is probably going to be stronger than the Cho'Gath. However, I would much rather prefer holding the Cho'Gath over the Vi because in the early game, it is way more likely for you to hit the Cho'Gath 2 instead of a Vi 2. And if you do hit the Cho'Gath 2, this unit is going to be infinitely stronger than the Vi. If you decide to level at stage 2-1, what you're doing is that you're dramatically lowering the chances of you getting these 1-cost units in your shop, which is really the units that you want to play around in the early game. I would only level to 4 in the early game if I have 1, a very strong spammable item, and 2, very strong 1-cost upgraded units, and I know I could potentially streak into neutrals. Here is an example of one of the games I played. I choose not to level to 4 here just because I only have an upgraded Tristana, which is not very strong in the current meta right now, and my front line is still 1-starred. Even if I level here, I don't really have a strong 4th unit I could play, and I'm most likely just going to lose my next 3 fights anyway, and by leveling to 4, I will end up decreasing the 1-cost unit odds that will appear in my shop, which will dramatically decrease my chances of making my board stronger, because I'll have a lower chance of hitting this Malzahar pair, this Viego pair, and this Cho'Gath pair. So here is an example where I end up choosing to level to 4 at stage 2-1. The reason why I choose to level to 4 here is because I end up hitting the Cassiopeia 2, which is a very strong early game carry. The first augment I took is Freaky Friday, which basically instantly gives me the strongest Ornn item in the current meta, especially considering that everyone else is probably taking the first Ezreal augment. They probably don't have a very strong item to play around in the early game. They're just slowly getting their components and their gold. And I have a very strong second slammable item, which is Gunblade. If I level and play this Cassiopeia, I am giving up this Cho'Gath pair and this Malzahar pair, but in my opinion, they're not as valuable because I already have this Ionia opener comboed with the double invoker between Karma and Cassiopeia. So eventually I do end up leveling, and this setup actually enables me to go on more than a 5-win streak into stage 3. If you guys enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel or followed me on Twitch, and I'll see you guys next time.